Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to PCTM, to the Pop Culture Time Machine, your favorite old school show on YouTube. Now, with the Creed movies finally reviving the Rocky franchise, I think it's a perfect time for me to put up some new Rocky videos. I think the Rocky franchise is probably my favorite franchise of all time. If it's DVDs, shirts, or sweaters, I just love Rocky. And there's so many interesting things behind the scenes that many people don't know. So in this video, I'm going to cover 6 things you probably don't know about the first Rocky movie. Alright, so let's go.
Take it back, do, take it back, yeah, take it back, do, take it back.
Number 1, Carl Weathers insulting Sylvester Stallone at the audition. Do you know those days where you wish you could go back in time and unsay what you just said? Well, apparently Carl Weathers doesn't. During his audition, Carl Weathers was sparring with Sylvester Stallone and accidentally punched him on the chin, which can happen. Stallone told Weathers to calm down as it was only an audition, and Weathers said that if he was allowed to audition with a real actor, not a stand-in, he would be able to perform a lot better. Director John G. Avildsen smiled and told Weathers that Stallone was the real actor and the writer, by the way. Carl Weathers' reaction was he looked funny at Stallone for a moment and said, well, maybe he'd get better, and Stallone immediately offered him the role.
The search continued, and dozens of actors were interviewed, including one former football player.
We had been through everybody. Then finally, Carl Weathers walks in like 10 o'clock at night.
I walked in at the end of a Friday, as I remember, in typical Hollywood cattle call, and I was introduced to the producers.
He's all full of bluster, and you're talking like that. Okay, where am I supposed to sit?
And I was introduced to the writer.
And I'm sitting back behind the desk, just watching this whole thing, and he's reading the lines, and I'm reading back with them, the director's over there.
At the end of that, the writer was seated, I was standing.
And then at the very end, he goes, I'd do much better if I had a real actor with me, so who's playing Rocky? Because he is guilty.
And the writer, as it turns out, was also the star of the movie, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, so we got to hire this guy. I mean, he's the most arrogant, pompous, incredibly gifted, beautiful. I mean, as the character, it's perfect.
Number 2, Rocky wearing the wrong shorts. Kind of. Everybody knows that Rocky was a low-budget production, which means certain mistakes can't be fixed. In the film, the poster above the ring before Rocky fights Apollo shows Rocky wearing red shorts with a white stripe, and he actually wears white shorts with a red stripe. This was an actual mistake made by the props department that they could not afford to fix. So Sylvester Stallone came up with the idea for the scene where Rocky points out the mistake himself. The comment about Rocky's rope being too baggy came about the same way. The rope delivered to the set was far too baggy for Rocky, so rather than hope people would notice, the character himself simply points it out. Stallone, you are so smart.
Number 1.
10.
I think so. I think we'd go 10 out of 10 for number 1. What an incredible movie. How many people came out of that thinking, I'm going to be a boxer now? Yeah.
I caused more young Italians to get retarded. Everyone thought you could be a fighter. I said, no, it's a movie.
Okay, all jokes aside, that actually proves how smart Sylvester Stallone is, making the best out of a bad situation. Sly. Number 3, the invention of the Steadicam. The iconic shot of Rocky running up the steps of Philadelphia Art Museum came about because of Steadicam inventor Gareth Brown. Brown, who was from Philadelphia, was getting ready to fly to Los Angeles to try to sell this newly invented Steadicam device. He had shot some test footage following people around corridors and from room to room, but he wanted to be able to shoot something that even the most experienced filmmakers would look at and wonder how he did it. He came up with the idea for his girlfriend to run up and down the museum steps while he followed close behind her. Using this footage, Brown sold the camera on his first day in Los Angeles, and several months later, John G. Avildsen, who was prepping Rocky, saw the footage and felt that a similar type of shot would be perfect for this film.
One final piece was needed to lift the training sequence off the ground, a cutting-edge new piece of technology invented by cameraman Garrett Brown.
When we shot that in Philly, all the running around, there wasn't a name for it. It was quite a contraption with a little tiny green screen, all sorts of wires and things hanging off it.
It looked like a monster, a beast. It had all these washers and nuts and bolts and ropes hanging from it to create the balance. It looked like a crowbar with a camera. It was savage looking, heavy, loud, but mobile.
It became known as the Steadicam. and it revolutionized the way moving camera shots were made.
I had a magic carpet for the camera, you might say. I mean, I had a one-of-a-kind machine that would let you run and climb stairs and so on, and do all the things you could never do handheld, and it looked like a dolly shot.
Prior to Brown's creation, getting smooth camera moves over distance required lots of time and money, exactly what Rocky didn't have.
In a world ruled by dollies, you laid rails outdoors. You either were on a crane and armed out, or you saw the rails. I think people in the business were more startled by it than the average audience, but I think the audience got into it for what it was, which was kinetically joyous.
The Steadicam not only enabled the crew to move quickly, it gave Rocky a unique look.
First of all, technologically, what you could do with that relative to a large camera that you've got to put on a dolly or handheld, it's, you know, going to be sort of shaky shots. And it was just a phenomenal tool.
I did the meat locker sequence, which is still one of my favorites, you know. All, you know, technically impossible stuff. No dolly could possibly have woven through those big sides of beef.
Everywhere I would go, we'd jump out of the car. Garrett would come out, and he was 6'6", and he was at one with his camera.
Think of the shot in the Italian market where he's running up the street. I was sitting in a pickup truck taking out the bumps from that vile road with this thing.
Number 4, Stallone making the fight choreographer quit. You gotta remember, back in those days, Stallone was an absolute nobody. Nobody knew about Stallone. He didn't have many hit movies under his belt, so this was really a big thing back in the days. Prior to shooting the fight between Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers, John G. Avildsen decided that the scenes needed to be shot in a unique way so as to make the boxing more realistic than other boxing movies of the period. When Stallone and original fighting choreographer Paul Stutter and George P. Wilbur talked about how the fight should be filmed, both parties couldn't agree at all. This resulted in Paul Stutter and George P. Wilbur to resign officially due to creative differences, which put Stallone in a bad position because he had no experience whatsoever how to shoot a boxing movie. But Stallone, being the smart guy that he was, he came up with a solution.
Director John Avildsen had decided they needed the boxing to have a brand new look.
Once I got the job, I thought I should look at some boxing movies, and I did. And I was appalled at how crummy the boxing looked.
They knew they had to do something different. Bringing in a veteran boxing coach to help stage the fight seemed like the place to begin.
I was working with an old-time boxing coach, and I realized I've seen this fight before in like The Champion and The Harder They Fall and the John Garfield, and it's this 1-2 slap, 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 slap. Two guys are going down, and two are going up here, and two are going down. I said, come on. And I'm watching, I said, look at this footage here of Rocky Marciano fighting Joe Louis. Why can't we do that here? He said, oh, you don't understand.
He was a boxing guy, but he was also a fencer. He used to teach fencing in movies and stuff like that.
And I said, okay, let's just try it. I'd like to have Carl Weathers come out of the corner and throw 4 right hands right away. And the man became outraged. The stunt coordinator, he goes, won't happen. I go, why? Because it's just, people don't throw 4 right hands. I said, I know he does because he's Apollo Creed. That's what makes him different from you and me. He goes, I refuse. And he quits. He quits. I went, oh. So now they're looking at me like I'm really arrogant. Like, what do you know? And you just had the best guy. His name was Paul, I want to say.
Paul Stater and George Wilbur, they were authorities in boxing as far as the film industry is concerned, but not as far as I was concerned.
And he quit. And he had done every big boxing film there was. Oh, boy, this is not happening at all.
He was like a traditional type of stunt guy, and that's why that didn't work.
So I thought, why don't we write it down? You learn dialogue, why can't you learn physical dialogue? Why can't you learn body language?
And I said, Sylvester, why don't you go home and write this thing out? Lefts, rights, this guy gets down, the other guy gets up, whatever you want, write it out. And we'll learn that like a ballet.
We choreographed the entire fight. You had to really work this thing out because you're now not only learning to do this and do this well, but you're doing it for camera, and you're doing it to look right.
The movie maker is interested in keeping the audience's attention, and the audience doesn't want to see someone circling the ring for 3 minutes. They want to see some action. They want to see punching.
Number 5, Sylvester Stallone having to sell his dog because he was so poor. Sylvester Stallone was so poor prior to filming Rocky, he had to sell his dog for $50. Yes, for $50. Actually, the same dog you see in the first Rocky movie. In a recent Instagram post, he said the following: "When I was 26, totally broke, going nowhere very fast, owned 2 pair of pants that barely fit, shoes that had holes in them, and dreams of becoming successful were as far away as the sun. But I had my dog, Butkus, my best friend, my confidant, who always laughed at my jokes and put up with my moods, and was the only living thing that loved me for who I was." After Stallone sold the screenplay for Rocky, the first thing he did, he bought Butkus back. And number 6, Paulie was dating Adrian in real life. Something that really sounds awkward, but this actually happened, so without further ado, listen to this. Burt Young.
And Talia Shire,
Who was Coppola's sister?
yes.
Francis Ford Coppola's sister.
Francis Coppola's sister. And I loved her. We sort of were together for a while.
Oh, no kidding. You had a relationship with her.
Yeah.
Is that public?
No.
It's not.
No. but she did
I wonder if that would have been disturbing to people, right? I mean, you played her brother.
Yeah, well, I wrote a movie called Daddy, I Don't Like It Like This for CBS. They picked it up. And we were, I think, in the second Rocky. And I wanted her to play my wife in this movie. We shot it in Corona, Queens. And Sylvester got a hold of her and said, "That's incestuous. How could you do that?" And she almost didn't do my movie. And I said, "Talia, for Christ's sake, we're actors. Just, you do what you wish. I'm your friend."
Alright you guys, I hope you liked this video. If you like it, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Peace, I'm out.